All right, so welcome to DojoCast. I'm here with Sensei Stan Miller of Portland Jiu-Jitsu. Stan and I have known each other for, I don't know how long, several years. We haven't seen each other in several years, but we've been connected here and there over the years through martial arts.
We did the next three that you put together.
Yeah, we did a couple of those. We did.
And I think you were there for my 50th birthday party, too.
I was, yeah. Actually, let me see. May 11th, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
God, that was almost 7 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're coming up on the big 6-0, huh?
Yeah. A few years out. Yeah. Yeah. Scary.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be as healthy as I am and have not got the injuries a lot of my other associates have with the knees and stuff like that, and all the finger bending, wrist cranking the professor did to me over the years. I've actually worked out pretty good.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to that, I find that, even in the stuff that I do, just all the finger bending and the wrist, the wrist stretches just kind of help with that, it helps with ages.
I agree. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Exactly. Yeah. I just haven't stretched my knees as much as I should have. So I got one bum knee. So
yeah. Which one? So I know.
Yeah. It's this one. It's my right. It's my right knee.
Yeah, that's what I'll go for then. Yeah.
Right on. So, Stan, thank you for being a guest today. It'd be awesome. So how long have you been in the martial arts?
I took my first class with Bruce Terrell when I was like 6 years old. And it was because my uncles were taking their classes, and that was Oregon Karate Association. And that was many, many years ago. But I didn't start jiu-jitsu until 1979.
Okay.
And I was introduced through my mom, who worked with a gentleman named Dave Sumner. And then we were introduced to his instructor, which was Jim Burgess. And Jim Burgess had learned his jiu-jitsu overseas in the military, brought it back to the U.S., and he was running a little dojo in the basement of his apartment complex. And I was like a senior in high school. And $10 a month.
Hey, that's
$10 a month.
Can't beat that price.
Yeah. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7:30 to 9. And if you came in earlier and you were the white belt, you had to vacuum the mats and clean the dojo, give it an extra clean before the class started. But it was a great experience. We were practicing the old style traditional katas. There was the 48 traditional katas, the Sasui Shuru system, and it was nostalgic almost, because once in a while we'd watch these old 8mm videos of Shitama Sensei and the guys going through the katas, and then we would practice kata. And it was very interesting just to be so young and then learning such an old system of martial arts that dated back to the 1650s.
Right.
And there really was, back in, 1979, there wasn't a lot of jiu-jitsu around the city of Portland.
Yeah. Well, I was a little young then, so I personally don't know, but yeah, no, it's, when it comes to Portland, even nowadays, I don't know how things have changed, how you've seen things change, but, there's lots of Taekwondo and lots of Kaju Kempo.
Yeah. There's definitely been some phases through Portland. A lot of schools don't make it very long, but I would say now there are more because of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu influence on Jiu-Jitsu. Maybe not so much of the old traditional systems, the old Rus, but a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now around the city of Portland. Yeah. And even a couple new judo clubs, because judo had died out for a while, but it seems to be making a little bit of a comeback. Yeah,
everybody knows who he is, but or at least most people know who is Jason Ledke. He's my... I guess he's the brother of my ex-stepmother. So I did a little bit of judo with him over in Selwood. I don't know if
at the community center?
At the community center there. Yeah, he's got a judo club over there. So,
yeah, Anchi is the one that had been around forever with the Obukan judo here in Portland. So
I actually worked with Anchi, not his father, but the younger one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Now, when it comes to your style of jiu-jitsu, since you brought up the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, how does yours differ?
Well, as I said, I started in a traditional system, a Sasui Shuru jiu-jitsu under Jim Burgess.
Right.
Dave Sumner went out and finally opened his own school And somewhere around 82, I went and started training with him and became one of his instructors. By the time I was a high green belt, I was already teaching my own beginner class, assisting with him. I blacked in like 84. But right before black belt, like around 1983, Professor Jay started coming to Portland more. I first met Professor Jay in around 1979.
Okay.
But then in the early 80s, he started coming to Portland more. And I tell you, my life changed because I got to meet a man that was not just a black belt, but a true, in my opinion, the true sensei, because he had such world of knowledge of martial arts and such a big heart. When he walked in the room, there was a different feeling that happened.
Yeah, he did have a completely different energy.
Yes.
You could feel it.
And so I demoed with him as a uke the first time he came into our dojo there on Burnside. And, I'm young, I'm spry, I can kip back up on my feet. And he grabbed my wrist, throw me back down on the ground, And so he says, hey, Mr. Miller, would you like to do a demonstration with me this Saturday night? I'm like, well, yes, Professor. You wouldn't say no.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it ended up being for the Academy of Kung Fu, and it was their 10-year or 20-year anniversary. I think it was their 10-year anniversary. And so we went up to Lung Feng's, which is a restaurant place that they had rented. They had a big convention room type thing. And here I was, this young kid with Professor Jay, and he's like, just go with it. I'm like, whoa, just go with it. And so I was supposed to come and mug him and grab this bag of change from him. And he cranked my wrist around. I flew through the air, hit the ground, and the mats had separated. So my hand hit the bare hardwood floor.
Oh, wow.
And it like broke the blood vessels in my finger. All right. And I don't know anybody there. I came with Professor. I drove him there. He's sitting with all the senseis and everybody. And I'm over at this table by myself with my hand in a glass of ice water, just waiting the 2 hours for it all to get over so I can go see if I need to go to the doctor.
Right.
But I wouldn't trade it for anything. That started my relationship with Professor Jay. And we went on to be on TV, picked up Channel 8 News came in and videoed us one time at Dave Sumner's dojo, and that went nationwide. Professor thought it was really funny. He was in Florida and actually caught the video clip. And,
that's cool.
Was just so impressed about it. And so my training, I never lived in the Bay Area to train with Professor Wally Jay.
Right.
But I would continually go to every seminar I could. He would give me things to work on. I'd go back and train. And then when I started my own program, we directly started following a lot more of a small circle. I still had the influence from the Sensei Shiru, but when you train with Professor Jay, it wasn't just his small circle jiu-jitsu. He encouraged you and told you to cross-train. So he'd introduced me to James DeMille, so I'd start learning the Wing Chun Do. He introduced me to quite a few different Eskrima, Kali instructors. I met Dan Inosanto. So my knowledge became very wide because of the different people I met through him, and he always encouraged me to incorporate that back into my own system. So to make a long story short, here we are 30 years later, and my system evolved into more just a street self-defense using good, basic, solid techniques from judo, from Eskrima, from silat. And I try and help people more, give them techniques that work for their body style. Instead of forming the person, here's the system, you have to conform to this system. I try and help everybody develop their own self-defense system also within those parameters, which in my opinion, is a great thing because not everybody can do the splits. Not everybody can even do a spinning back fist. Maybe they got bad hips, bad shoulders, where hence my sightless self-defense program came from.
Yeah. No, you've been doing, and I was going to ask you about that. That's you've been doing that for quite a while.
Yeah. I started sightless self-defense in 97.
Okay.
And it all spurred because one of my students' moms said, hey, Stan, have you ever thought about teaching the handicap or visually impaired? And I go, no, not really. I said, but I could do it. I could teach anyone. And so this lady, Mary Hope, contacted the Oregon Commission for the Blind. And all of a sudden, within a few months, they had me set up to go and teach a class. Well, I am still teaching a class. So it started in 97. Every Thursday from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock at my dojo, I donate my time and work with the visually impaired. And I teach out at Oral Hall. I've done seminars actually all around the United States on helping visually impaired people increase it's not just self-defense. It's more of a safe for life. You know, how they carry themselves, how they secure their home, how they handle their money, you know, all those different things that can make you a victim. And it's been just great. I'm sure I've trained thousands of different visually impaired people.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It just makes me feel great, you know, that I'm able to do that, to empower them.
Now, is that something, like a, because I know on Facebook you just have like just a group, just, you know, sightless self-defense, but is that a program that you've thought about, you know, kind of canning up and monetizing, or is this just something that...
You know, it's funny because I've asked that, you know, and I had to write different programs out when I did it for the Washington School for the Blind. They wanted a whole curriculum, and, you know, I did that for them. And I looked, there's a company or association, I think they're Danzanryu Jiu-Jitsu, and they call it One Touch.
Okay.
And, you know, I've been doing this since 97. They came out with this. They're doing their thing since like 2005, you know, but they were smart enough to go out and go to the big conventions where the blind groups meet and stuff. And so their program's huge. And,
oh, that's awesome.
I kind of feel set back that I have hesitated and not put that program out to make it more nationwide. The problem I found is when, even if I trained someone, I had a person that I thought was really competent. They moved to Florida, and it was a female, and she said within a year she'd already kind of lost the knowledge, and it was too hard for her to travel back to keep her training going. So I don't know how comfortable I would feel about, like, say, go to a commission in New Hampshire and you teach someone at the commission how to do the sightless self-defense program, and they don't really have the ability to answer all the questions.
Right.
You know, it really takes an instructor that's got the background to be able to help people. Because, as you know, because you're an instructor, people always seem to have these off-the-wall questions of why. And what if they do this? But, well, why wouldn't I do this? And, you know, unless you've answered those questions before and are comfortable with it, you don't know how to field it. Then all of a sudden you're not as competent as you could be. So people don't have the confidence in you when you're trying to teach them. And so what I have done is nail that down where I'm trying to teach only about 20 techniques, and that's with the breathing, stance, grab defense, cover up position, and teach more concepts of like contact response. If they're grabbed, do this. Once they touch a person, they have touch sight, and so then they're able to locate the different spots on the body, target spots, through that type of contact and sight. And so getting their bodies to react, of lowering their center, getting balance, breathing, not holding their breath, you know, all those things really have just helped the people become more confident. So in the 12 weeks, that's what I cover. Now, I have students who've been with me, as I said earlier when we were talking, that are in my regular jiu-jitsu program that are visually impaired, legally blind, but they've been with me like 8 years. And that gentleman definitely can do more out of the box than some of my other students, because of he's always had to be more sensitive reaction rather than depending on the vision.
Right.
So it's to answer your question, yeah, I'd like to can it and do it like that, but I don't know that I could really feel as good about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's all about the quality.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I don't want to give someone a dull knife.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
You know, something that'll get them in trouble or beat up or something like that. That's why that's why I really curtailed it more to calling it a safe for life skills. So if they can really just achieve on carrying themselves, raising their voice when they need to, carrying their chin up, you know, head up, securing their backpack, securing their money, making sure their doors are locked, you know, things like that in their life being more secure. It makes me feel like I am offering something other than just the physical part, because not everyone can do the physical part.
Right.
In a crisis situation, you know, it's a tough one.
How is martial arts, jiu-jitsu, Professor Jay's influence? How is that? Can't think of the word. Molded you as a person, you think?
You know, I got to say it was a great loss to have Professor Jay pass away, because he really was a mentor to me And the way that he gave so freely his martial arts to people, I just wanted to emulate the same thing, you know. So when I go out and teach, it's not just about the money. It's about trying to help people better themselves and give them a piece of knowledge that hopefully they can grow with. Professor told me a story one time, and I really thought it was pretty special. And he said, you know, I cut down the trees. Now it's time for you to do the rest and build the roads.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, and it's true, you know. And then I hope that my students keep it going. You know, because it's going to take generations of refinement. And it's not just about small circle jiu-jitsu. It's about you as a person also, and how you grow and how you interpret martial arts and how you incorporate it in your life. And the martial way is a lot different than just the martial arts of the physical part.
Right.
And I think a lot of people out there these days that train don't always know that because their instructors didn't teach them that.
Yeah.
You know, and so I try and pass on the stuff that Professor gave me as far as how to treat people fairly. You know, every time I saw him meet someone new, he'd call him, "Hey, champ, how are you doing?" You know, he would always try and build people up. I had never heard any derogatory things come from Professor. And that's one thing I really admired about him. Like we talked earlier, there was a certain energy that man gave to you when he came in the room or shook your hand. And he helped everyone step up a little bit. I know that there's a lot of instructors across the United States, George Dillman, that would really say the same thing, that how Professor helped them be a better person.
Yeah, I've never heard anybody speak negatively of him at all.
No. I mean, the sad thing is a lot of people don't know who Professor Wally Jay is. But if they pick up a Black Belt magazine anywhere back to probably, 65, 62, maybe even later, you'll find some type of article about Professor Wally Jay in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's and pretty much a lot of the martial artists of his generation. I mean, it's they're slowly kind of.
We are losing the old
dying
masters.
out. Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel odd, like we talked about, 60 is a few years away from me. And, I never considered myself being the guy carrying the torch,
mm-hmm.
that I'm going to be that guy. But I guess I am.
Yeah. It's funny. That kind of reminds me of, I was the lucky passenger in the vehicle with Professor Anderson and Grandmaster Bram Frank. We went up to Tacoma because they were doing their stick and steel seminar with Kelly Warden. Can't believe I can't remember that name, but they did one in Gresham and then one up in Tacoma. So he could be involved in it too. So the three of us drove up there and the three of us were driving back. And I remember sitting in the back seat and the two of them were talking about how they are, how they looked at their instructors and it was like, okay, these guys are great guys. They know everything, they're our leaders. And he says, I look at myself, it's like, and him, it's like, we're now that generation.
Yes.
That we are now the leaders of the groups of martial artists that,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to go to a lot of camps called Camp Donzenru,
mm-hmm.
and it was down in California. And I would sit and have dinner with guys like, Professor Trutsunaka, Professor Wally Jay, and these guys would be all sitting at the table, and they'd be telling stories about Professor Okazaki, their instructor, and hearing the lineage, and you start thinking about, okay, well, you were born in like 1920 something, and that guy was born in 18 something, and just what you talked about earlier, we're kind of losing that generation that really had touch with the guys from the 1800s,
mm-hmm.
and it's a sad thing, but again, with the proper instruction, like with Professor Jay gave, people are passing it on, and it is staying alive. And I think that's great. I love to see guys like, Dan Anderson, his lineage of the different people he's worked with and be able to pass it on. He worked with Remy Presas and a lot of different people. Guys like Dan Inosanto, who was a student of Bruce Lee's and what he did to further martial arts.
Right.
The 2 or 3 times I got to attend his seminars and with his wife, Paula, incredible. it was eye-opening for me, and right away. Matter of fact, I have to give kudos to him, to Dan Inosanto, because he had shown me a technique that is the foundation of my sightless self-defense program. And it was a seal-out move where you put your hand up behind your head and you project that elbow, and it's like, hey, talk to the elbow. And he said, this cleans the house. And then so with the blind people, that's one of the best things for them to do. Cane in one hand, put their other hand up behind their head, and now they're in this kind of protective position. And it's, right away when I saw that, I went back and that became part of the program. So I myself I owe so much to these different guys that Professor Jay introduced me to. Mm-hmm. But I honestly, I don't know any of Dan Inosanto's students that are carrying the torch. I think that's something we're missing. I don't. If you had to look at someone who's carrying the torch for Remy, who'd be the one guy you would go to for Remy Pracis? Sorry,
Probably Dan.
Dan.
Yeah. I would, just because I know them personally. Kelly not so personally, but at least on the West Coast. Well, not really West, because what's his name is East Coast. But you've got Kelly and Bram, who are passing on the knife stuff, and you've got Dan passing on the stick stuff. And so they're, but and I know that there's other people out there. There's there's the masters of tappy tappy and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know them all personally, but it's almost kind of like when Remy died. It was kind of almost like when Ed Parker died. Everybody kind of chose their corner. Yes. And it was like, okay, I'm the leader now. And he's like, why aren't you following me? And so it was a squabble, and
there's a vacuum when these guys pass away. And who do you go to? The guy that has the most talent, or the one that's a family relative, an inheritor? Right. The inheritor doesn't really mean that he has the skill. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the problem, that people don't know who to follow. And so is the knowledge going to keep ascending, with the right people? Right. And so, and I've seen it over the years, and because Ernesto, the other side of the Remy Pracis, Ernesto Pracis, he had his flavor or style of how that family developed their martial arts. And honestly, I had worked with him, and I couldn't tell you, maybe Ben Fowler, mm-hmm. Was a good follower on that side of that family. But it's not just the stick arts, it's the judo arts, it's all the different arts. And then, who is the next guy, that you go and you try and get your information from. And then now in this age of technology and information, you want to be able to search that, but if you don't know how to search it, then you don't know, where to find it. Right.
Well, and with everybody kind of sticking up and saying, hey, follow me now. Like you said, you don't really know who you're, who to follow. And it's like, okay, well, I trained with X, Y, and Z. I don't know. I mean, are we looking for the original core art, or are we looking for something that is close to it and maybe has evolved? Exactly. Because even with me, like with you started in one style of jiu-jitsu and you moved into small circle, and then with sightless self-defense, you've kind of created your own version of everything that you've learned over the years into, Miller Jitsu.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially.
Exactly.
And even with Dan Anderson, I mean, originally he was learning karate, and I can't remember what style he originally started in.
Oregon Karate Association.
Yeah.
Same place I started.
But then he was basically teaching American freestyle karate. That's, that was kind of his thing. And then with Modern Arnis, he taught that. And then when he kind of got the nod from Professor Pracis, it turned into Modern Arnis 80. Yeah. So his own flavor. So,
and I think it's important to do that. I'm not saying that you need to go away from the core, right? Because I really respect guys that hang on to the core. Yeah. But in that Sasui Shrew system, I got up to second dan, and we were still just doing the 48 katas. We weren't looking outside the box. We weren't looking about multiple attack. It was just preserving the kata. And so when I met Professor Jay and I saw there was so much more out there to do in martial arts and the ability to blend and his encouragement to cross-train, that's where I am where I am today, because I was encouraged to take the R&E skills that I learned from all the different guys. I got to train, I did the Big Three seminar with Remy Presses and George Dillman, taking the place for Professor Wally Jay. So how would I not absorb from these guys?
Oh, absolutely.
And so when you come into my school today, you could see one night where I'm doing a knife, gun defense, stick techniques. We were teaching the 1-inch floating punch just Thursday night. The night before that, we were doing judo techniques because I think that it's that full basket. Now, could my people go compete in a judo tournament? No. They are not judokas that are trained to compete. They're judokas that can use judo on the street.
Right. Through
Striking, closing, loosening the guy up. And then when the right tool is needed for a throw, the throw will fall into place. Could they go and compete in a karate tournament or an open martial arts tournament? Probably do okay. Matter of fact, over the years, my kids, used to go to the Chase tournaments and always take first or second place trophies, Now, as far as the freestyle, they have like freestyle kata self-defense things now with Jiu-Jitsu America. And because we don't study those katas like that, we couldn't do it. But as far as just open freestyle self-defense divisions, my guys would do real well. Rory Miller came into my class with one of these electronic practice knives. Have you ever seen those?
Oh, is it the one that zaps you when you touch it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he wrote in his book about my group that it was the first group he came to that didn't run away from the knife. My guys closed in and went for the wrist and went for the disarm, which surprised him because a lot of the other schools he went to and did the same test with kind of shied away from it. And it's because that's the way we train, it's if you're in the range to be able to go against a weapon, you go against it, and picking the blind line, some of the stuff we learned from the Wing Chun allows you to move on a line to intercept the hands without the eyes picking it up. And so we work a lot on those type of skills to give you that stealth ability to move in on someone. So it's been a great experience for my students because I'm not afraid about bringing in other instructors to help teach them to further their knowledge. One of James DeMille, who was one of Bruce Lee's first 10 students, his top student was Ron Ogie. And over the years, Ron Ogie at least was coming like once a year for like 5 years straight, just working with my group and experimenting with them. I got to say, he was developing his teaching skill also. Nothing like having a Wing Chun guy come and smack your students around because he's practicing. But they loved it and they got a lot out of it. And to this day, we still incorporate that as part of our program. Some people say, you can spread yourself too thin trying to have too many pots boiling at one time. And I really agree with that. But I also think that if you don't know what to do on the ground, if somebody pulls you to guard, you better know how to get out of it.
Right.
Somebody, comes at you really fast and you don't know how to sidestep or redirect their energy using some Aikido type stuff. That's not good. The guy comes up, puts a knife to you, you shouldn't panic. You need to be able to respond to it. And that's what I like to give my students is a good, well-rounded foundation that they're not trying to be too fancy with, but just have an answer for the different situations they can come across.
Yeah, no, I like that openness. And I think that's, me coming up in the martial arts. I started in Taekwondo and then I got into Ruku Kempo. And of course, that's how, I met Wally and Remy and George. And, but it's still that openness to train with everybody. Yeah. And that first time where we did the Next 3 seminar, we actually had some people from Hillsborough and McMinnville that they were in a closed system. Like they weren't allowed to go to outside seminars. They weren't even allowed to go to outside tournaments. Everything came down from their instructor and that was law and that was it. And like my thought, that's alien to me. It's like I couldn't live in a totalitarian I couldn't live in a society like that where it's just like, what? That's and I remember when I was even promoting well, I'll come back to that. But when that group came, they were just like, wow, I can't believe the openness that we felt just from all the instructors and all the students, that was just like an eye opening to them, that it was like there's actually a world outside of their little box. And
you find that a lot.
Yeah,
unfortunately. And I understand that you need the focus, but I also think that a certain part, it should be mandatory that you look outside the box.
Yeah.
I mean, after black belt, instructors should encourage it. I do. I even told one of my guys, hey, I'll pay for you to go and train and do something else for a while, which he did. And then he brought that information back to the school and helped make our program even better. But yeah, the next free seminar was very interesting. I met some of those people, and you saw this wide-eyed kind of wow, and it was good. I think that they really realized that there's a family out there of people that are open to share. So when you were asking me about the evolution of martial arts, I when you're in the arts this many years and sacrifice so much, I could have went and worked on computers or being whatever, but I focused on still learning and developing martial arts. So calling it Miller's martial arts or Stan Miller's martial arts, it is. You're right. It is what it is today, because I have no governing body saying you have got to do this, this, and this to rank your students. You've got to pay us money or anything like that. So is it better? I know the students who come and train with me that I have a good lineage to prove of where my knowledge came from. But if you looked in the internet and went to Joe Blow's karate school, how do you know he just didn't make up his own certificate hanging on the wall and now he's teaching, Johnny's karate system?
Yeah.
And that's what I feel sorry for the general public. Where is the credential check? Is this guy the real deal? Or is he just brainwashing me, saying, no, just do what I say and then you'll be fine?
Right. Well, and it's funny you mentioned that. There was a martial artist that basically kind of bullied me. In fact, I was thinking about doing a bully episode on that. But basically saying, hey, you're 40 some years old, you've got a 5th degree black belt, how is that valid? And just was, it's like, I've been in the martial arts since I got my black belt in 73 and I've done this and this and this. It's like, you don't need to tell me your whole story. I don't care. But one thing that he did bring up, which I totally agree with, is, like you said, where are the checks and balances in that? Because, I mean, like I have one friend who owns a school, and he's like, yeah, people come in and they see the program and they see you, and it's like, oh, you're a great guy. It looks like you know something. Here, I'll pay you money to teach my kids something or to teach me something. And that's great. But how do you know that I didn't just, buy a printer, get Photoshop and make myself a certificate, and then learn stuff,
exactly.
Learn stuff off the internet. So I absolutely agree that there should be some type of, and maybe we should like self-regulate, I don't know. I mean, that's what happened here in Oregon was security. It was security guards and officers were getting a bad name. And so Oregon, I don't know, back in mid 90s, we're like, no, self-regulate.
And, like with all your aerobic instructors and all that, they all have to get accredited.
Right.
And they couldn't do that with martial arts because a lot of the Chinese martial arts and stuff like that tie into religion.
Right.
And so that's why that never happened. That's why we're not regulated or licensed or anything like that. But I agree with you that if you have nothing to fear or hide, you put your information out there. This is where I started. This is who I trained under. This is what I'm teaching now. And so you have nothing to hide. The guy that's closed doors, because there are schools that don't let you sign up. They don't even let you watch a class until you sign up for their program.
Right.
And
wow.
yeah, scary. And then you're in a contract. I have never had contracts in my program ever.
Yeah.
I'll give you a discount if you sign up for a year or 3 months, different programs. But I don't force people on that because it's not really the way I want to be treated.
Yeah.
My bank doesn't like it because they'd like to make sure that on the first of the month, I got all this money coming in. But
yeah.
But it's the monetary part is not why I'm in martial arts. If I wanted money, then I'd be a salesman and doing something else.
Yeah.
But I think that what we're talking about is really came more to play as I see these guys as the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and these other things opened up. hey, well, I got a black belt under Gracie, or I got only a brown belt, and they go up and they hang their shingle up, or and this is what I've seen a lot, Shodan in Taekwondo opening a martial arts school. And you know what? It would all depend on the individual, because you don't know what experience he has. He could be ex-military, he could be government trained, could have been a professional fighter, or he could have been just a guy that started from white belt and in 2.5 to 3 years got his black belt and decided that I live in Canby and I'm going to open up my, first Taekwondo school. And, if you're going to have someone teaching your kids, you'd like to have someone that has some experience or had went through a program, taught children programs before. But that's why we see some things in the news about making kind of a black mark on martial arts instructors are these ones that really don't have the good experience,
right?
And they just can put a shingle out and say, "Oh, I now have a school."
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned getting the black belt in 2 or 3 years in Taekwondo. When I first started, of course, I was in Taekwondo, but I remember Che every month. You came and you could test, and I actually helped somebody get their black belt in 10 months.
Yeah.
Seriously, we trained every single day. And I was just like, I already kind of had my mind on the pressure points. And so I was like, okay, Che had his book. You just need to know just this. And so it's like, the kata and the one steps, and you need to know the terminology. And so it's like, okay, and he's like, yeah, no, I want to see if this can be done. And you go to some of the tests and you're just like, okay, but, and it's sad, I don't want to talk about Master Che like that. He was actually a really good man.
Oh, absolutely.
But when it came to, monetizing, he had it. I mean,
he was one of my mentors. When I first started teaching at the YMCA, I would go to Master Che to buy all my equipment, and I'd sit in his office, and he would lecture me and tell me about things, about having a contract, and that you're not going to ever make, steady money until you make people responsible to pay you. And so when I left the Y and I had my own building, I listened to what he said, but I still couldn't get over that type of thing, of Fort locking people in and taking their money when they're not coming to class anymore.
Right. And like for me, I don't do contracts. It's all month to month. I just ask that you give me a 30-day notice,
Absolutely.
And of course, when I started my school, I thought about, do I do a contract, but morally, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Like you said, give you a discount if you pay so many months in a row or, ahead of time. But it's just, for me, I've just tried to simplify it. It's just like, you pay me $100, I'll give you a uniform. Just, you don't need to buy everything. I mean, if you want to, you can, but it's like, I'm not going to nickel and dime you. You don't
have to buy these tapes. You don't have to buy this sparring equipment. You don't have to buy my special signature gis.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I don't even charge for promotions, because what does a belt cost us wholesale? What?
$5
or less?
Or less. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I'll spend that money. You've done the work. You've come to class every day. You've been attentive. It's like, this is something that I believe you earn. Here you go. I'll put them through the ringer on the test, but still, it's if they deserve it, so it's not, it's
like we said, we don't give belts away. You earn them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, but it's, but there's a guy that I met, this last summer where it's all about contracts. It's all about contracts. And, in a lot of the literature that I've been reading, that's like old school thinking. And there's even a local instructor I'm friends with in Vancouver where he does the same thing. There's no contracts, but he talks about the times where he actually had contracts, and, he had somebody come in and he sold them on a 3-year black belt deal. The guy signed a check for $3,000 right there, handed it over, and never came back.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh I'm like,
yeah, I've never got that much. I think 1,000 is the most I got.
Yeah.
And the guy came for 2 months and then didn't show up.
Yeah.
And you know, so do you feel bad about that? I mean, it is their choice. I contacted him a couple of times, say, hey, you know, what's going on? You going to make it in? Oh, well, this happened and that happened. And, oh, I'm moving back to New York. And I'm like, all right, do you want a refund or something? You know, I actually was that nice. You give him a partial refund. He says, no, you know, Sensei, you know, I appreciate everything you've done for me. And the knowledge that you did give me during the time I was there is well worth it.
Yeah.
You know, and, but yeah, it's tough. But when we look at some of our competitors out there or the other guys that are teaching that are getting bigger, fancier schools because they are bringing in the revenue, you know, it's tough. I got a small little, you know, 2,000 square foot area and, you know, dressing rooms that just got pieces of cloth to cover the doors. Would I like to have, you know, showers and, you know, hot tub for my guys and everything? Oh gosh, yes. You know, new mats every 3 to 4 years. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that what the balance is.
Right.
But I'll tell you this: I had a broken window that I didn't have insurance on, and it was $800. You know who paid for it? My students. They contributed the money to replace it.
See, and you can't buy that loyalty. You just can't buy that. That's awesome to hear. That's something like, I mean, it sucks that the glass was broken, but that they all kind of stood up and contributed back into the dojo.
Yeah. It was great. Made me feel really good.
Yeah.
Almost tears, you know.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, one check after another kept coming in. It took about less than a week. You know, we raised the money.
Wow.
Yeah. So now we got to start raising money for some new mats.
Well, you know, how long have you had these mats?
Professor Wally Jay bought these mats because when I taught the Big 3 seminar for him many, many years ago, the money went directly to Jiu-Jitsu America or to Tiger Claw.
Okay.
And we bought these mats.
Okay.
And I've turned them over because they got so smooth on one side. I was able to flip a few over and make them keep lasting. But we're a year or two out before we need to put another layer on top of here.
Maybe upgrade to those Swain.
Oh, that's what Mark Tuthill has out in Long Island. He really likes those.
Yeah.
The Swain mats. Probably just another layer of these. These have really done well.
Yeah, they've held up really well. I've come to a couple of classes here, and you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
Easily.
Oh, more than that, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. But we clean them all the time, and that's the thing about a dojo. You got to keep the surface clean and the dojo clean because, the different, people's feet stuff and everything like that. That's why, I was one of those guys that came from the system where you never wore shoes. Right. That was like to walk on a mat with shoes was sacrilegious. Kicking somebody's bags with your shoes on. But then the change came. Then they started making martial arts shoes, and they started, guys started using wrestling shoes a lot. And I think it's a great thing because, for one, it keeps the dojo cleaner. They can keep the hygiene, keeps everything they have in their shoes and, where it should be. And then over the years, I have seen a lot of change in products for martial arts. Between anything from the sparring equipment to the bags that we use now. These XXL bags that I have from Sensei that are here, they're freestanding. You can roll them around. I think when you started, probably like I did, it was those hanging bags, those big old heavy bags, which, swing from the bottom. Unlike, that's not really how a human body kind of works, where these are weighted with water at the bottom, so the top floats and moves just like a person's upper body moves. So it's a little bit better. And of course, the bob that Sensei puts out, where you actually have mannequins to, gouge the eyes and chop the throat and pop the ears. I think it's been a great training aid to my program.
Yeah. No, when I first started growing my school, that was the first thing I got was actually one of the Sensei XSL bags. Those, you use it for pretty much everything. I haven't gotten to Bob yet. I think when I started looking, they had redesigned him, and now he has like a solid back to it because it used to go right up the center. Yeah. And I was kind of turned off by that. I was like, I don't think so. Yeah. So, but
you'll see here I got a before and after.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, over behind you. Yeah. The before one, he's tired. His nose is ripped off now too.
Well, one of the schools that one of the pressure point schools that I've been to, they have a bob, and he's just got polka dots for where all the different pressure points are located, which is kind of cool. I actually bought myself a mannequin for that same deal, not to really hit on, but as a learning tool.
Yes, to identify spots. Yeah,
but a bob with dots actually gives you a little bit of hitting practice.
It does. When you're hitting stomach 5 and stomach 9 and stuff like that, it's a real nice tool. I even have them grabbing on the collarbone
Oh, there you go.
Getting kidney 27 or whatever that is. 17.
Oh, stomach 12. Right here.
Yeah.
Stomach 12.
Yeah. So it's good. It's a good tool. And let alone just the straight up, like I said, I call it more Neanderthal martial arts, where you just learn, hit head, cup your hand and slap the eardrum, or take your thumbs, poke in eyes,
Yeah.
Because there is a certain part of martial arts that is just the primal part, where it's just like your natural reaction. And I when people are brand new, I like to, in the first month, to give them some skills that they could go out with. It's like a perfected outward wrist lock, where you're holding the wrist just right and you've got your thumb just right. And you got to kind of build up some strength or learn how to use that. Or if you grab someone's wrist with two hands and you twist it, it works just as well, but maybe not be as pretty, but it works well.
Well, I don't think I've actually ever been in a physical confrontation that was pretty.
Well, exactly. Yes. Yeah. And for a lot of guys like myself and yourself, working security, gave me a lot of time to do hands-on.
Yeah.
Over the years, doing different bouncing at different bars and stuff, and actually having to control people and, escort them out of the building or defend myself because they take a swing at me. And then for many years, I did intervention and transport of minors to private schools. And, I had a knife pulled on me a couple times and had kids resist and try and, fight back. And, so getting live application of using your martial arts when it was not even just a fight, we're just using controlling techniques,
right,
is a big difference than a person that just goes and trains their martial arts, gets his black belt, and has never been in a fight.
Right.
I've seen and been in enough fights when I was younger, and then been around situations, I say, where I was bouncing, where 3 to 4 people are fighting. And you're coming up on a guy and you see the knife on his belt, and the first thing you do is you strip the knife off of him, and then try and go into some type of lock or control to peel him off the other guy. I actually pulled up on the street one time, 2 guys fighting. Both of those guys have belts on their knives. Mm-hmm. I mean, belts on their knives on their belt.
Right.
I come up to the first one, get his knife, circle around to the next one, clear his knife. I go to grab the one guy and peel him back as the police officer rolls up in his police car, grabs the one guy, and I was like, kind of paranoid. I said, "Do you want me to let him go?" And he goes, "No, it looks like you got him under control. Just hang on to him for a second." and so it was really nice. I've had a couple situations like that where I've got to help law enforcement, and they were just kind of looking at me like, "How do you know how to do that?" Well, I just got done teaching my jujitsu class, and I was on my way home and saw this confrontation happening. And I think that it's the individual that does get to have live action, real practice, he gets to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
The police officers that we train, I don't know how many of you taught, but I've taught everything from IRS to Treasury agents to FBI to police officers, and they come back and tell me, what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes, like the fine motor skill stuff, a finger lock or something is hard to get a hold of, but the arm bars, some of the restraining moves, some of the quick shutdown where you get your hands onto the guy immediately and shut him down, and then get into locks. They said that stuff has worked great. And the ability to engage a guy's upper body, but also be able to attack his ankles with either like stepping on spleen 6, rolling the ankle out.
Right.
Little moves like that, which people just don't expect. They don't expect their ankle just to give up like that when you step on 6, and it does. Coming up and kneeing a guy in gallbladder 31, bam, the leg goes dead, and down he starts to go to the ground, especially with any pressure. So the officers that have used my techniques really, really enjoy it. Matter of fact, I had Portland police contact me through one of their officers, and we were doing an extraction techniques about getting people out of their car. Mm-hmm. And some of the techniques I taught them was a little bit of small circle, but a little bit of pressure point too. Just going right in and pushing on a point and getting the guy to react, and then it frees the hand off the steering wheel so that you can then arm and drag him out. Or the guy leans back and kicks at you, and they go right into an ankle lock, get right on that Achilles tendon, and just dragging that guy straight out of a car. But I got an award. I got the commendation from the city of Portland for assisting them with that program, which was kind of cool. Yeah,
that's cool. No, I think you posted that. Now, when did you get that?
Oh, quite a few years ago, maybe 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember seeing you like reshare it, and I was like, I didn't know about that. I mean, I know we're not BFFs, but I was like, I thought I would have heard about something like that. Well, I thought that was really cool.
I was really surprised, to tell you the truth. It was good and bad. There are a lot of people who know who the Chief Foxworth, was it Foxworth? The one that got in trouble. He's
okay.
Derek Foxworth.
I think so. I can't remember.
Anyways.
I can't remember.
But no, getting the award was great. And again, I had to go down and receive it, and there was like got my picture taken with the police chief and everything, and it was a commendation medal and award for just being an outstanding citizen for contributing, and it also did tie into all the effort I'd put into the sightless self-defense program. They just looked at me as a whole and everything I was doing for the community, and then what I did for the law enforcement for PPD, and I got an award. It was kind of cool. Yeah.
Do you have it on your I Love Me wall here, or is it at home?
I keep it at home. I don't want it to come up missing.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah, it's one of those type of things.
Yeah.
But I also received the Wally Jay award, which was really a special award that I got, and it's for just contributing to the martial arts and coming through over the adversity. There's a lot of things when you're an instructor, and that happens, and you have to keep kind of plugging at it, whether it be, financial things or relationships, that can keep you from wanting to keep on being able to teach. And I kept plugging through, a lot of people I talk to them, they're like, "You're still teaching?" Like, yeah, it's what I do.
Yeah.
Some people get a black belt, but they're not really teachers. Right. And I think my instructors knew right away as soon as they met me that I was going to continue and be an instructor and keep sharing the knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot of people that out there that get the black belt just to say they have one, and then then there's like people like you and me that get it and do continue on in pretty much almost any way that they can.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like for me, I don't have a lot of students, but I have my web series, so it's like for me, teaching is just part of me.
Exactly. And the promotion of martial arts. I mean, you have been really an advocate to bring in martial arts instructors for people to be able to taste all the different flavors, with Mark Klein and Dan Anderson and Bram Frank, and you encourage a lot of people to come and train. And that's a great thing. That, like you said, about an association, it's like people don't want to associate. It's like, again, I compare it to religions. Everyone just believes in their own religion.
Right.
And it's their own religion of martial arts. And they don't, there's no cohesive thing where, hey, it's okay, we can all come together. And so when guys do put together things like that, like you did, bringing those people from Hillsboro and different people from different areas for us all to share, I think it's a great thing. It shows that there is a brotherhood. And it's too bad there's not more forums that people can interact on and feel like they're not going to get in trouble from their instructor for looking over the fence at what's going on over there,
Yeah. Well, even, when I was a Dillman associate, I credit George for giving me a chance, being a young black belt and kind of losing my connection out here, because my instructor at the time, he and I were, not really on speaking terms. But, when I went to Sensei Dillman, I was like, hey, this is kind of where I'm at. I want to continue doing this. He's like, okay, it did cost me some money, but I got to be in associate school and all that kind of stuff, but I was still a junior associate. And so when it came to hosting him or anybody else that was Dillman style, I was not the person. It was always the senior. And even I tried to organize Jack Hogan.
Yes.
I don't know, years and years and years ago. And he ended up coming out eventually through the instructor that, or I can't, maybe it was. I can't remember. Anyway, he did come out. He came out several times. But originally when I tried to get him out here, it was, yeah, no, I can't come out because you're the junior.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, you're not going to do that. So,
yeah, I don't know, the loyalty thing. I understand it. It's like, if you're a scuba diver, they want you just to buy scuba gear from that one shop.
Right.
Don't go look on the internet. Don't go get it over here. But I think that things are changing.
yeah.
I don't think that that's as prevalent as it was before. I think a lot of these instructors who want to teach are out there, and if you set up a seminar for them, they'll try and come out. I think that the Jiu-Jitsu America group is very open. They still have a lot of great instructors in their group that come out and teach at their different. If you're affiliated with them, they'll come out and teach at your dojo, and that's nice because they have such a different, wide variety of people that are part. They may call it Jiu-Jitsu America, but it's Ohana and Kokua. It's a family, and you could be our niece, you could be a Eskrima, you could be Kempo. Bob Mashmeyer is a big Kaji Kempo guy, and he has 2 or 3 schools that are still a part of Jiu-Jitsu America. So there's a wealth of knowledge through that association. And there's a lot of different associations out there, but I don't know of any that are as well-rounded as the JA group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, even like the Taekwondo group, me being a martial artist for all these years, I don't have any connection or any website or knowledge of what the USTF is doing.
I have no clue.
Yeah, and
I know that there's information out there, but it's not something that I'm.
Yeah, and like if there's a judo tournament, I don't get that information or easily accessed. I gotta say, for the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and these open MMA guys, the stuff comes in the mail.
Yeah.
And they're becoming, a forum and a group that are sharing knowledge because they want people to compete. And I kind of wonder in the future how much more that'll grow and continue. I think as far as if it's still on television and people are seeing it, I see more than ever young kids grappling and knowing what the mount and the guard and side mount and, Kitsukitami and all these different stuff are. And wanting to go and compete. So I think that it's going to continue. They said that aerobics or cardio kickboxing was going to die out. Mm-hmm. And I know there's still places teaching cardio kickboxing. Ed Milan, these guys on the East Coast still have it as part of their program. So I think that as mixed martial arts continues, tournaments continue, you're going to see individuals that are going to want to do that. Maybe because they wrestled in high school and they like that grappling type thing, or maybe they did Taekwondo and then wanted to cross over and mix into the grappling part of it. But the only venue for them to do it is at those type of tournaments. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that goes. As far as I know, there's only like Master Che. I think his son is continuing with the Che's Taekwondo tournaments. They usually happen twice a year.
Yeah, I see the flyers every now and then. Of course, I don't get any of that stuff in the email, but I know when I've gone into the school, like you said, you've gone buy supplies there. I go in there every now and then to get stuff for myself too.
Yes.
But so you'll see a flyer up, for whatever. But
yeah, but we don't really get it as a.
But we don't get it anything to put up in the school.
Yeah, it's kind of back to what we talked about there. There's just the passing of the knowledge isn't really freely circulated to mm-hmm. all the people that are involved in martial arts.
Yeah,
which is too bad.
Yeah, there is one, and I don't, to be honest, I don't know what kind of organizations he belongs to, but do you know Sensei Alan Best in Eugene? Mm-mm. So he's been in Eugene for a long time. He's got a school that he actually converted from an old post office. So when you walk in, it's huge. That's where Bram teaches every April. But he does. It's held twice a year. It's called the Pacific Martial Arts Conference, and you get 10 instructors throughout the day, 25 minutes each, like 5 to 10 minutes in between. I think it's 5 minutes between each instructor. And so I went down there and taught one year, and then I went back to play another year. But he's been doing that forever. ever. And you don't donation walking in the door. And so you get to see some people on the floor that are like, oh no. Yeah. But then you get to see some people like, wow, that's really cool. Like, I know I'm going to butcher the name of the art, capoeira. Okay. So I didn't actually know how to pronounce that until I actually saw a capoeira teacher at the Pacific Martial Arts Conference. It was really, I was like, oh, that's how you pronounce it.
And there you are.
Yeah. But great group of people, learned some basic stuff. As a big guy, I'd have to do a lot more training in that, but to be able to do it. But one of the cool things that the instructor, you just tell that there was some positive energy there. He's just like, okay, are we looking good? Are we feeling good? Are we looking cool? Because as long as you're looking cool, you're doing it right.
Nice. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But
that's kind of what we talked about, though. It's another his cult or his group, not cult, but only they know about it,
right?
And I mean, what can you do? There's not like you put out a big mailer or Channel 6 News. I'm having this event this weekend, stuff like that. Because frankly, none of us have big money.
Right.
I don't know anybody in the martial arts in the Northwest that are millionaires that can throw money away for big advertising.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all over the internet. Just doing
Facebook.
Facebook, some mailers, and it's really interesting because there's some people that swear mailers work, and then there's other people that swear that email works, and then there's other people that swear that Facebook works, and it's just like I do a little bit of both,
Yeah.
Just a little bit here and there, because you get your core people, and honestly, with the Pacific Martial Arts Conference, you hadn't heard about it. The only way I really heard about it was because I go down to Allen's school every year, to see Bram. So,
did you come to that event we did a few years back with the Academy of Kung Fu?
That was Trent.
Trent. Yeah.
He put that on for years, but yes, I went to the one that you taught at, and then
stick and knife guy. You just said his name earlier.
Dan Anderson.
Dan Anderson was there, but also.
Kelly Warden.
Kelly Warden was there also.
Yeah. Yes. So Kelly, I don't know if Dan specifically was there for that one. I know you taught, because I went a couple different years in a row. I went to I think the first time I heard about it is shortly after I had met Trent. And is it Junker or Junker?
Junker.
Okay. Yeah.
So I bring it up because Trent was making an effort to pull some different martial arts from different systems.
Oh yeah.
And put together some really good workouts.
Because he did it for like 8 or 9 years.
Yeah. And I appreciate his effort, but it was another one of those futile things that that there was no way he was going to be able to continue with it because monetarily wise and just trying to get the people together.
Yeah.
It's a fleeting thing. It's like with our, when we're doing the next three, look at the knowledge that myself, Dan Anderson, and Mark Klein have.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, that's why it was the next three because,
And we pull in 15 students.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to what we talk about. How do you advertise and let people know what this is? This isn't like you say, one guy you kind of put your head down and go, oh, this guy, isn't really teaching some good stuff. No, it's three guys that are firing all cylinders. You're like, wow.
Yeah.
I never thought about it. Or I've never seen that technique like that. Or look, he's so much more precise, and that will increase my knowledge and force me to be more precise on my techniques.
Right.
Which begins if you're more precise and you put out less effort and save energy and all those things. And it's like we said, it's hard to know who is the guy that's worth going to train with and who's the guy that you should shy away from. Mm-hmm. And who do we look towards? Is it the inheritor's son? Is it the who is the best guy in different systems to go and learn? Whether it be gun, knife, stick, kicking, throwing, locking, pressure point. And I hope that there's guys like you that are kind of sorting out there, looking at and being able to give your references, people you talk to, people you interview, and to let people hear these podcasts and find out about it, find out about me.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I wanted to come out of the next three was that you have three people who each trained under, some of the big three, but have it, it's local.
Yeah.
It's the local talent, and try and kind of bring it up from there, because you guys, like even talking about it, earlier, it's like, okay, all these guys are, they're either retiring or passing away. And so, yeah, you're the next one. I mean, you may not be the inheritor, but you are an original student, and you're passing on your information. So really that's the next one in line. I mean, what was it? Jack Hogan and Bruce Chu, and I think Leon. I think they were doing Masters of the Next Generation seminars. So something similar.
Yeah.
You know. So and
unfortunately Hogan's gone now.
Yeah, Jack died a couple of years ago, and so it's
you got to get it while you can.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. I mean, again, we could look back in history. How many systems died when the instructor died?
Oh.
When the master was wiped out or just passed away, and his knowledge left with him.
Right.
I always thought about that we had this core of great martial arts, and it was kind of like a diamond. It went out, it got wide, there was all this training, and then now it's kind of starting to come back together where people are sharing more information now than they ever did before, mainly because of the internet and the sharing of the knowledge. But now people have a chance to look at the kung fus and look at the judos and look at the Israeli martial arts and look at the different African martial arts and all the different stuff that's out there that people didn't even really know it was. They thought there was Japanese and maybe Chinese, but there's way more. And the American Street Fighter is a system all unto itself. There's no doubt that the American Street Fighter has evolved into it. I mean, there's no one I think that says this is what I'm teaching. This is American street fighting, but all of us that been around the martial arts and grew up, they know that there's certain parts that you teach as street fighting, which is about using the environment, such as the curb, a wall, a car. I had a TV. I had my antenna ripped off my car one time when two guys started fighting, and that's when I started realizing, well, there's a lot more to fighting, street fighting than just hitting someone. It's using your environment, which we always talked about, but American street fighting is that. People are ruthless, Yeah. And I didn't really realize it till I saw that show Gangs from New York, about the kind of some of the history of some of violence and the things that they used to really do to each other. I mean, they've been doing it for thousands of years. Yeah. And things are no different now, really.
Yeah. Well, it's, you had mentioned Rory Miller coming into your school, and it was actually funny. I think, was it his first book, The Meditations? Because when I read that, I was like, oh, Stan, I know that guy. But, when I read that book, and I actually, I heard about that book from Steve Perry, one of my favorite writers. And so I was like, oh, what's this guy all about? So I, Rory Miller, pick up the book, then Facing Violence. And Facing Violence was just like, that's now a required read for my students because it's just just fabulous. But, and I know he did come from,
Sensei Shrew, same system I have a black belt in.
But it's more what he teaches now is basically through his experiences in as a corrections officer and all the studies outside of that.
Absolutely.
So looking not just outside of an organized martial art, but what other people have gained through life knowledge. And with Trent's seminars, when I got a flyer, an email about that, and I saw Rory Miller's down there, I was like, okay. So I was calling Trent saying, okay, I was like, I can only get a certain part of the day off. I'm going to try and leave early or go in late to work because I can't get the whole day off, but I can kind of maybe fudge it. I was like, when is Rory teaching? And so he was, he's like, well, I don't really like to give away this information, but this is what information this is the time frame. I was like, done. So I went to go, it was just like, to me it was meeting a legend. Now it's like, I just promised that I just wouldn't be a stalker. I just check in with him every now and then, and I like Rory. Rory's come to my school and taught. We've gone out for lunch. He's a really great guy, but that, being able to meet people that you've read about or all that kind of stuff in these big seminars that like Trent was doing and all that kind of stuff is valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was funny because even with that, I had at that one, I had told a couple of my students, it's like, okay, so Rory's going to be teaching. We're going to go here. This is what it's going to be about. And so, I went, I talked to him. I think he thought I was a little bit crazy. And then he was looking for coffee, so we walked down the street to a coffee shop, and a couple, two of my students were with me, and they were kind of following along. And so Rory and I are just talking, and he turns around, and he goes, "Do you guys want coffee or anything?" No, we're just here. And he's like, "Okay." So it's like,
yeah.
But. I think.
Yeah, I've known Rory for a long time. Matter of fact, one of the first articles he wrote to Black Belt that he had sent pictures in was shot right here.
Oh, cool.
And it was about, they were talking about jiu-jitsu, not using striking. So he wrote a whole article about, no, there's striking in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And Black Belt picked it up, and it was funny. I picked it up to see pictures of my dojo with Rory in there. And so it was pretty neat.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I actually contacted him about doing podcasts, and he's out of town now, but he's like, absolutely. He's like, when I get, whenever he gets back, we'll sit down at some point.
Again, I think you're doing a great thing, getting people out there and getting them to get online and be able to tell some of the stories and share some of the knowledge and just the experiences we've had. There's, like I said about carrying the torch, man, we have to be able to pass it on.
Absolutely. Now, we have this statue of Remy. I don't know if we...
Oh, Professor Jay.
Oh,
God. How dare you?
How dare I? My mind was somewhere else. Yes, Professor Jay. So this was related to that award you got, didn't it?
Correct. This is what the first few students got these. What happened is they ran out of them.
Okay.
Obviously, they were going to keep giving them out. But it's the Wally Jay Award.
Okay.
And Jiu-Jitsu America gives it out. I got mine in... 2001, I think we saw on there.
Yeah.
I was looking on there. And signed by Professor Jay. And he just really, this was his way of reaching out to people that knew that put a special effort and committed their lives to martial arts. And I think he respected that a lot from people. Like I say, the first time I met him, we went out and did a demonstration together. And then in 1997, when he turned 80, or 80, don't quote me on my dates. But anyways, he had his 80th birthday party.
Right.
And at that point, he talked about Small Circle Jiu-Jitsu International. I was one of the few people on the stage that he presented as the future of Small Circle Jiu-Jitsu. And he knew my commitment to him and to his system to keep on passing it on, to keep on improving, and to care about the people that you were teaching, not just do it for money. And I think that's one thing he respected about me and my school, because he actually came to me. I had first formed my school after I left the Sensei Shiru system and just called it Portland Jiu-Jitsu. And I was learning from Professor Jay, and all of a sudden I went to this camp, and he goes, Stan, he goes, I don't want you to call your school Portland Jiu-Jitsu. I want you to call it Portland Small Circle Jiu-Jitsu. And I said, well, I just happened to have some T-shirts that I already made because I already knew it was in the process of that happening, but he hadn't officially asked me.
Yeah.
So what he did at that point, he called my instructor, Jim Burgess, and told Jim Burgess that I was no longer, that he wanted me to become a direct student of his, and that I was no longer going to be a Sensei Shiru student. And just out of respect to Jim Burgess, he did this. He had already seen that over the years that I had gravitated to him.
Right.
But I had not gotten any rank in Small Circle. And so at that birthday party in Hawaii, I was given my shodan on that stage. And from then, before he passed away, I got to Fifth Dan, and that was back in 2005. And that's the last rank I got in Small Circle. mainly just because of my relationship with his son, and some different things have happened. And Professor Jay, when he passed away, he said, everyone that's got his rank for me or instructor certificates, they are bona fide, they're yours for the rest of your lives. But if you want to get any more rank, you need to follow what my son is doing, and the Leon Jay's, Professor Jay's small circle jiu-jitsu. So it was, a little heartfelt. I told Professor when he was alive, I said, your son's going to choose his own soldiers. We were your guys, and I said, I understand it. He's got to have people around that he depends on. And, so through the years, I still have a good relationship with Leon. I see him at the different conventions. I still push small circle. I still push the small circle books. But small circle is not the only thing that's taught at my school.
Right.
There's a lot of Wing Chun. There's a lot of Arnis. There's a lot of Silat. There's a lot of pressure point, and which Leon does. We all incorporate that, but we now have our own flavors. I like I say, it's been great experience. I would never give this up for anything. This time I had with Professor Wally Jay, and when I see his statue I have. It just reminds me of all the great times that we've had. Professor Don Jacob from Trinidad, I got introduced to him because of Professor Jay. And one day we went out to lunch after the seminar, and I always looked out for Professor Jay. We're crossing the street, I'm looking for cars. I'm looking for anything that's going to cause him a problem. And Professor Don Jacob came to me and said, it's good to know that there's someone like you looking out for Professor like I do. And it was a real, touching moment to have a guy like that. I don't know if you know who Professor Don Jacob is, but he's phenomenal. He's a super athlete. He's the kind of athlete that can jump over his uke, then double kick him in the chest as he rolls out. A guy that can throw you in a hip throw, then punch you 3 times before you hit the ground. That's Professor Jacob.
Cool.
And totally devoted to Professor Wally Jay. Just a super guy. Professor Jay first met Don Jacob at a tournament. It was an open martial arts tournament in Canada. And the Trinidad team, they were cold. They were gave this kind of basement area to go stay. And Professor went and made sure they had everything they needed, blankets and all that. They just weren't expected to win. Anyways, his guys won the whole tournament. But Professor Jacob jumped up and kicked the net on the basketball rim. And that's when they realized it. The guy had some skill.
That's awesome.
Yeah. His professor always told that story because he just was that thankful and just was so happy to have met Professor Don Jacob. I could go on and on. I got so many great stories from Professor Jay. Even when he was down at Oregon State going to school here in Oregon, how he would travel back up Highway 99 and come up to Portland and stuff, and just so many great things that he got to do and people he got to meet. The guy, he lived a great life, and he shared that with all of us. And a lot of people don't know that he was a postman, delivered mail for many years in Alameda, California. That. And between him and I got to have a lot of close conversations. And if you ever saw Professor do his palming technique, well, every day he would palm his mail cart up and down the sidewalk, up and down the stairs, all around with the palm of his hand for every day for many, many years. And then he kept on incorporating that into catching fingers and palming people and moving around. So that's why there's not going to be too many people in the world that are going to be able to do what he did, because they aren't going to put in that time every day practicing palming and moving things around.
Right.
And I didn't know it till me and him had the discussion, and I made the connection right away. As soon as he told me, I go, well, that's why you can do that.
Yeah.
You did it 10,000 times, every day on your mail cart.
Yeah, that makes so much sense that there's that much, because just, even having a school and practicing on students, you don't get that proficient.
No.
Yeah, no. But, working an 8-hour day, just moving your cart around, totally. It makes so much sense.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Again, it was great. I will never,
Oh. I guess it got a little bit weak there.
We're in trouble. I can never give back as much as he gave me.
Yeah.
It's too hard. There was so many times where we did trips together. Like you talked about hanging out with Rory for a while. Mm-hmm. Well, me and Professor would go on long trips. I'd pick him up in Washington, and we'd drive around and go do a seminar, or we'd be back east, and in between, be there for the weekend, and we'd be sitting there at night talking all night long. One time we went to the John Hancock building out in Boston. We took the subway together. Wow. And I'm watching this 80-year-old guy just hang on to the pole and showing how he was practicing his balance. He didn't want to sit down. He wanted to practice his balance on the subway,
That's insane.
And he was just that awesome, and there's just so many different things that he did for me that I will feel obligated to him for the rest of my life, and have the responsibility to continue to teach the feeling that he gave to me and the love for the martial arts that he gave to me.
Right on. Well, I think that's a good segue into ending this. Well,
Mitch, thank you very much for having me out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Without having that thing fall over.
That was a signal.
Yeah, I guess it was. Well, we've been doing this for at least an hour, if not a little bit more than that. So, but yeah, so I don't know. Maybe we can get together again, and you can just tell Wally stories.
Yeah, I'd love to, because there's definitely more to tell. A lot of trips to Santa Cruz, a couple different trips that we did in Vegas, out to the Midwest camps, and then a camp out in the Midwest where he was sick with his when he had heart surgery. Mm-hmm. That his wife Bernice Jay came out and was part of the convention, and she jumped on us to make sure all the guys were ki-ing properly. And Bernice was out there, Mrs. J was out there, just telling everybody how it is. That if you're going to be a martial artist, you got to breathe, you got to ki. And so we had some good times.
Right on. So if anybody's local and they want to train with you, how do they get a hold of you?
The best thing is look at portlandjujitsu.com on the internet. But unfortunately, I Googled myself the other day trying to find it, and all these guys that pay all the money seem to have me buried to the bottom. They're not even called Portland martial arts places. But unfortunately, the way Google is, I had a hard time finding myself.
All right. Well, we'll make it easy. We'll put a little tag right down there in the comment box with a link to your website and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that'll link it to Facebook too. Yeah, it's a lot easier for me to update things and post pictures on Portland Jiu-Jitsu on Facebook.
Okay.
So you can find that too.
Awesome. All right.
Great.
And we are done.